Fire in the Maternity Ward is the latest comedy special from Anthony Jeselnik, and it will compete in the variety categories at the Emmys. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, here with Jeselnik. What is your favorite joke in the Netflix special?
God, I really enjoy the dropping the baby bit where where you think I'm about to get political. I feel like so many comedians now feel like they have to yell at the president. And I just wanted it to be a fun hour of comedy where you could forget about all of that. And so I like the misdirect of you think I'm about to go in on political stuff, and it's still just I'm dropping babies. That and the abortion bit at the end, I think, is just a tour de force. It's one of my finest moments in comedy.
For those particular bits, how long did it take you to workshop that and get the balance right of where to land the jokes and how to do the build up to them?
About a year. I built them. I had the idea of the baby dropping thing, and then I had the idea. I actually took a friend to get her abortion, and I thought this will be. I thought of one joke, and I thought, is it okay if I do this joke? And she said yes. And then every time I would go to prepare, I would think of another joke, another bit to add to it until the story got so big that I couldn't add any other jokes, that was as heavy as it was going to be. And I really enjoyed being able to close with that. But yeah, I took a year in Los Angeles to perfect the hour, and then took it to clubs for a year, and then took it to theaters for a year before I finally recorded it.
Yeah. Did the baby drop idea come to you when you dropped the baby?
No, it was more like more a surreal dropping of a baby. I've never actually dropped a baby, but the fear, I think, every time I've held a baby, I've been like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Most of my sense of humor comes from what is the worst thing that I could do right now. And that once I think of it, then I just can't stop thinking about it. So whenever I've held a baby, I thought this could go bad at any moment.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, and I guess also like a big part of comedy is what is the worst thing I could possibly say right now?
Exactly. Like I have this premise, what's the worst place you could go and still make sense, which is, it's tough to do. It's tough to build an hour of that. But I think that comedians lately, because of Netflix and because of the prevalence of stand-up, have just been able to put out a comedy special every year or two and just talk. Where I thought, if I can really make these jokes great and take 3 years, then the special will be better and will stand the test of time more than just making content. I always say I don't make content, I make art, and art takes longer.
Yeah, and something that I think was a bit different from a lot of the other comedy specials that I see is I press start and it just started off with the joke. You're up there, there's no scene of you putting a tie on or like getting a cab to the theater or walking down through the hallways and things like that. What was the decision process behind how to kick off the special without that sort of pomp?
I just thought it was the most badass way to start. Why have that beginning stuff that everyone has done? It's never entertaining. You're just hoping for it to end. That, like, why not just start right on stage? And I think with Netflix now, I think that's become more and more prevalent with comedians, just like starting right from the top and not having any kind of business up front. There's no reason for it. It's just, let's get right into it and not waste anyone's time.
Yeah, I guess people are there for the jokes.
Exactly.
I think another part of your act that's quite interesting is that you are there's quite a lot of meta references to things, and you are like constantly like commenting on the jokes and the audience's response to the jokes, and even things like, oh, have you ever heard of a false premise and things. Where do you choose to be sort of meta in that way, and what do you think that adds to the comedy?
I think it kind of brings the audience into my side of things. I'm not talking down to them. I'm using comedians' language. Comedians speak to each other differently off stage than they do when they're talking to an audience. And I wanted to kind of eliminate that barrier and just speak to the audience as if they were comedians. I don't insult their intelligence. I'm like, you know as much about this as I do. Let's just talk as if there's no middleman. I'm going to talk to you as the way I would talk to my comedy friends backstage. I feel like a lot of comedians have a darker sense of humor than their act would showcase. But I just wanted to give you an unfiltered point of view. And I think using terms like false premise that half the audience will understand is fun. It reminds me of the old Dennis Miller bits where you would only understand half the references, but you went along for the ride.
And what do you want audiences leaving your show thinking, or audiences finishing the Netflix special thinking? What do you want to leave them with? How are you wanting to affect them?
I wanted to leave them with a feeling of disbelief. Of I don't know how he got to that point. I don't know how he made me laugh at these horrible things, how he tricked me into laughing at these horrible things. Because that was always my favorite comedy growing up. You know, I loved Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey, where you would laugh and then you would just be mystified by how did he think of this? You know, how did he possibly come up with this great joke? That I want people to leave kind of stunned, you know, at my skill level. You know, it's very much an egotistical thing, but I want them just to be like, wow, he obviously put a ton of work into this and he didn't waste any of my time. And I'm just so happy I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Is comedy like diving, like where you're also judged on degree of difficulty?
I hope so. You know, if it does, then I come out on top. You know, I think it's tougher to make people laugh at these dark things where the setup builds the tension where people hear the word Alzheimer's and they're like, oh my God, like, is this the thing that offends me? Or am I going to like this too? And then it's like an escape act from there. It's like I'm upside down, covered in chains, in a thing full of water. And you're like, how is he going to get out of this one? And the punchline has to be good enough that it makes them laugh and they forgive me for bringing it up in the first place.
What was the trickiest bit to work through for this act for you? What was the hardest bit to just get right?
God, I mean, the Alzheimer's joke was very tough. I mean, my entire career, I've been trying to find sacred cows and make jokes out of them. And Alzheimer's was always almost impossible because everyone's been affected by it in some way. And there's really nothing funny about it. That it was very tough to finally come up with a joke that I felt held the weight of the topic. That I didn't work on, like the joke kind of just came to me all of a sudden, but it was a 16-year building of trying and failing with Alzheimer's to finally get that to work.
Talk about these sacred cows that you're trying to take on. Do you think there's comedy that sometimes crosses the line, or is there a way to how as a comedian do you approach those sacred cows and feel the freedom to address them without crossing lines or things like that?
I don't really worry so much about crossing lines because I used to believe that there was no line in comedy. And now I've realized that everyone has their own line and I just don't care about them. The point of the joke is to make people laugh at these things. So it just, the punchline has to be smart enough for you to bring up the topic in the first place. If you have a bad joke, then the whole point of it just becomes about the topic. And it's never about the topic for me. I might use these heavy topics, but that's not the joke. The joke is in the punchline. So to talk about heavier subjects, you need to have a smarter joke.
Yeah. You talk at the end in the special about, a spoiler alert, about how you've got the outrage and the laugh. You go through a different set of emotions and you say they're all the same to you. Is the worst possible thing for you as a comedian is to not solicit an emotional response? Is I want to be apathetic towards what you've just said?
Yes. If people get upset, if people boo me, that's the same as a laugh. As far as I'm concerned, my only enemy is silence. If I told a joke and people just sat there bored, I would be upset. But as long as I move the needle in some way, whether it's through a laugh or just making someone a little bit upset, because I've got another joke coming right afterwards that they might forgive me for. And I have so many things that I take on in the special and all of my specials, really, that you can't get mad at one because it makes you a hypocrite. If you laugh at all these other jokes, you can't get mad at the abortion bit, because you've laughed at things that are just as bad, if not worse. But everyone has their own limit that they don't want to hear jokes about. I've gotten to the murder-suicide bit and people were like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you're doing this. And then I get worse afterwards. That I'm always surprised at what's going to trip someone's wire, but I can't think of it like that. If you're talking to 2,000 people, someone's going to get upset or someone's going to leave at some point. And I would be bummed out if they didn't. If you had all 2,000 people standing and laughing, then you become the Big Bang Theory, where you're a crowd pleaser. And I'm not a crowd pleaser. I'm not an entertainer even. I'm a comedian. And comedians should rub people the wrong way from time to time.
What's the best boo you've ever gotten?
The best boo I've ever gotten?
Yeah.
I was opening for Chris Rock in St. Louis, and it was like an all-black audience, and I have some jokes about racism that aren't racist jokes, but they take on racism. And his crowd, I mean, during the setup, they are booing me. It's the kind of joke where you have to let me get to the punchline so that you know I'm not a racist person, but they were not about to let me get to the punchline. And so that was a struggle. Luckily, Chris is a fan and was backstage laughing at me the whole time. But yeah, that was a tough show.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Fantastic. What joke do you reckon you've had the most people walk out on?
The abortion bit. The abortion bit, because I find that a lot of my fans are conservatives and they believe I'm on their side. And then I get to this abortion bit that is I'm not judging the person getting the abortion. I'm helping a friend get a medical procedure. And I make jokes about it, but I think people just draw the line at abortion that people will be laughing and clapping the whole way through. And then I get into the abortion bit and they realize how long I'm about to go for and they get up and walk out. And I'm always happy to see those people leave. They've already bought their tickets.
Yeah. Do you reckon when you get to the bit where you go, we're halfway through, a lot of that, is that the moment where a lot of people go, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, right up top, as soon as I hit they hear the word abortion, they're gone. I'm like, this is a very long, a very true story. People start to file out. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe they used to like politicians getting political and not like putting many jokes in their political bits.
I know. I mean, Trump makes more jokes than any politician I've ever seen. They're not always good, but he definitely tries to use that.
Yeah. And Anthony, what final question? What's next for you?
Next, I'm in my office right now. I'm doing a TV show for Comedy Central. It's called Good Talk with Anthony Jeselnik. It's like an interview show. You know, Fire in the Maternity Ward was such a kind of a hardcore thing to spend 3.5 years on, that I wanted to do something fun where I'm just it's almost like a Charlie Rose type interview where I just sit across from a comedian and we just have fun and joke around for half an hour. That'll premiere in September.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, Anthony, thanks so much for talking with us about comedy and about Fire in the Maternity Ward. To all of anyone watching this, you can go to goldderby.com and make your predictions for Hollywood's top awards, and you can click subscribe to this channel to get updates when we have other interviews with top Hollywood stars. Thanks, Anthony. It's great to chat.
Thank you. Obviously, thank you.
No worries. Okay, we're done. We got 3.